I had always tried to believe that family meant something, that blood, somehow, created a kind of bond that couldn't be broken. But that illusion shattered the night my younger brother, Eric, decided to humiliate me in front of everyone we loved. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. My daughter, Lily, had spent hours crafting a small gift for her uncle's birthday, a handmade photo frame she decorated with shells and tiny drawings. She was only 8, and her heart was full of that innocent pride only children have when they give something made by their own hands. We arrived at my parents' house just after sunset. The table was full, laughter filled the air, and for a moment I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe this year would be different. Eric had always been the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I, on the other hand, was the one who left home early, the one who worked too much, who didn't make time for family. As we entered, my mother rushed to greet us. "Oh, you made it," she said, kissing Lily on the head. "Eric will be so happy you're here." I smiled politely, though a small knot of unease tightened in my chest. Eric was already standing near the fireplace, surrounded by his friends' men with loud laughter and the kind of arrogance that comes from never being told no. When he saw me, his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Wow," he said loudly. "Look who finally decided to show up. Miss Independent herself." His friends chuckled. I forced a polite smile. "Happy birthday, Eric." Lily tugged at my sleeve, her small hands holding the wrapped gift she'd made. "Can I give it to him now, Mommy?" she whispered. "Of course, sweetheart," I said softly. "Go ahead." She walked up to her uncle shyly and held out the gift. "I made this for you, Uncle Eric," she said, smiling brightly. Eric took it with exaggerated curiosity. "You made this?" he asked. "How sweet." He tore off the paper and held up the frame. The room quieted slightly. It wasn't perfect. The glue was uneven, and the shells were crooked, but it was made with love. Then he laughed, loudly. "Cheap, worthless trash," he said, shaking his head. "What am I supposed to do with this? Hang it next to my awards?" The laughter that followed was cruel. My daughter's smile vanished. Her little fingers twisted together as tears welled up in her eyes. "Eric," I said sharply, stepping forward. "She's 8. But he just shrugged. Then maybe she should learn early that not all efforts deserve applause. My parents exchanged uneasy looks, and then, to my horror, they smiled. My father muttered, "He's just joking. Don't make a scene." Joking? My child was trembling. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small heart pounding. For a moment, I wanted to shout, to throw his expensive wine glass across the room and demand an apology, but instead, I stood still. I watched him grin, watched my parents laugh nervously, and watched my daughter's tears stain her cheeks. Then something inside me hardened. I had spent years trying to keep peace in this family. I had worked 2 jobs when Eric failed college, helped pay for his debts, even convinced my husband to lend him money when he begged for one last chance. And this was my reward: humiliation, mockery, and silence from the people who should have defended me. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked in a small voice, "Mommy, did Uncle Eric hate my gift?" My throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. He just doesn't understand beautiful things." But as I kissed her forehead, a single thought kept echoing in my mind. He needs to understand. The next morning, I woke up early. I made myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the faint dawn light creeping through the window. Eric's words replayed in my head, "Cheap, worthless trash." I had been silent too long. Every insult, every little humiliation had piled up over the years, and I had always swallowed them down. But this time, he had dragged my daughter into it. That was his mistake. He thought I was weak because I stayed calm, because I never fought back. He forgot that silence doesn't mean surrender sometimes. It's the pause before the storm. I opened my laptop, logged into my investment portfolio, and looked at the small business I had quietly built from scratch over the last 5 years. Eric had no idea that the struggling single mom he loved to pity was now financially independent, that I owned the very property where his startup rented office space. An idea began to form, sharp, calculated, and satisfying. If he wanted to treat my daughter's gift as worthless trash, I would show him the real cost of disrespect. By the end of that day, I had made several calls, quiet, professional ones. My lawyer, my accountant, a trusted friend in the real estate department. Each word I spoke was calm, measured. Because when you plan a storm, you never shout. You whisper. And that was how it began. The following week passed quietly, or at least it seemed that way on the surface. My parents continued their lives as if nothing had happened. Eric posted photos from his birthday party on social media, pretending everything was perfect. I didn't comment, didn't call. But beneath that calm, I was working. My company, a small but profitable consulting firm, handled contracts for several businesses in the city, including, ironically, my brother's startup. Years ago, when he had begged me for a discount on rent and office management, I'd agreed, trying to be a good sister. He never knew the property belonged to me. The lease was in another company's name, and I liked it that way. Now, that small detail gave me more control than he could ever imagine. On Monday morning, I met with my attorney, Helen, a sharp, quiet woman who had seen me rebuild my life from the ground up after my divorce. "You're really sure about this?" she asked, sliding the folder toward me. "Yes," I said simply. He crossed a line. Helen nodded. "All right. The renewal notice for his lease is due in 2 weeks. I can draft a termination clause under the unprofessional conduct section. You'll need to approve it." "Do it," I said. When I left her office, the cold air outside felt cleaner, sharper, as if something heavy had lifted from my chest. For years I had accepted Eric's cruelty under the excuse of family. He would borrow money, never repay it. He would insult me at dinners, calling me too serious or the boring one. My parents would always say, "Oh, that's just how he jokes." But I had stopped laughing a long time ago. Now, it was time to make him understand consequences. 3 days later, my mother called. "Your brother said you haven't spoken to him," she began. "He's worried you're still upset about that little joke." "Little joke?" I repeated softly. "You mean when he insulted my child?" "Oh, don't be dramatic, dear. You know Eric didn't mean it that way." "Of course," I said, smiling even though she couldn't see me. "I'll make it up to him soon." My mother sounded relieved. "That's my girl. Family should stay together." When the call ended, I stared at my phone for a long time. The irony of her words almost made me laugh. The next Friday, I visited Eric's office. I hadn't told him I was coming. The receptionist looked startled when she saw me. "Do you have an appointment, Mum?" "No," I said with a smile, "but I believe he'll want to see me." Eric's voice echoed from the corner office when I entered. "Well, if it isn't my favorite sister," he said loudly, pretending warmth. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" He was sitting behind his desk, surrounded by expensive monitors and half-empty coffee cups. His startup was flashy, all appearance and little substance. I took a seat across from him. "I came to talk about the lease," I said. His smile faltered for a second, then returned. "The lease? What about it?" "You'll be receiving a notice soon. Just a formality, the property owner's changing some terms." He leaned back, smirking. "Oh, come on, I know the landlord, old Mr. White. He loves me. We've been on good terms for years." I smiled. "Yes, I know." If only he knew I was Mr. White. He waved a hand dismissively. "No worries, I've got bigger deals coming anyway. Investors lined up. You wouldn't understand, it's big money stuff." "Of course," I said quietly. "Congratulations." I stood up to leave. By the way, Eric, I added as I reached the door, next time you get a gift from a child, try to act like a man, not a spoiled boy. The look on his face was priceless. His smug smile slipped, and his eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said softly, just a sisterly reminder. Then I walked away. Over the next week, things began to unfold exactly as I had planned. First, the notice of termination arrived at his office. The letter was formal, polite, and merciless. He had 60 days to vacate the property due to breach of professional conduct, a clause he'd ignored in the contract years ago. Then came the second blow, the cancellation of his consulting services. My company had handled his accounting, and with the same professionalism he had once mocked, I sent him a brief email. Dear Mr. Carter, this letter is to inform you that our business relationship will be concluded effective immediately. We wish you success in your future endeavors. No emotion, no explanation, just facts. 2 nights later, my phone buzzed. Eric. I let it ring twice before answering. What the hell is going on? He shouted, before I could even speak. They told me I'm getting kicked out, and the accounting firm dropped me the same day. You know anyone there? I do, I said calmly. Why? Because this can't be a coincidence. Someone's sabotaging me. Maybe, I said softly, or maybe karma's just punctual this time. What's that supposed to? But I ended the call before he could finish. I turned off my phone and stared out the window. The city lights blinked in the distance, cold and beautiful. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not joy, not triumph, just silence, calm and steady, like the sea after a storm. The next morning my father called. His tone was sharp and, Your brother says you're behind this nonsense, he snapped. Is it true? I'm not behind anything, Dad, I said quietly. I'm just making sure people get what they earn. That's not how family works. Maybe it should be, I whispered. There was a pause on the line. For a moment I thought I heard guilt in his silence, but it was gone as quickly as it came. You've always been difficult, he muttered. Always holding grudges. Maybe, I said, but some lessons take a little pain to sink in. That night I went to check on Lily. She was drawing at her desk another frame, this one brighter and more careful than the last. Who's that for? I asked gently. She smiled. For you, Mummy. You said Uncle Eric didn't understand beautiful things, so I made one for you. My heart ached. I knelt beside her and hugged her tightly. Thank you, sweetheart, I whispered. It's perfect. As she laughed and kept coloring, I thought about how strange justice can be, not loud or cruel, but quiet, deliberate, and deeply personal. Eric still didn't know it yet, but his entire business was built on my property, my rules, and soon my decision. And that decision was coming very soon. Rain lashed against the hospital windows, streaking down like silent tears. In the cold fluorescent light, Sarah sat by Emma's bed, her hands trembling slightly as she brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's pale face. Machines hummed quietly, each beep cutting through the heavy air. Emma had fainted from exhaustion, from everything. Her brother's cruelty, her mother's shame, the feeling of being invisible in her own family. It had been 2 days since the argument. 2 days since that awful word, worthless, had torn through the fragile peace of their lives. Sarah hadn't slept. She replayed the moment endlessly. Jack's smirk, Emma's trembling lip, her own silence. That silence was the heaviest thing she had ever carried. When Emma stirred, Sarah leaned closer. Sweetheart? Emma blinked slowly. Mom, I'm sorry. Those words broke Sarah's heart. No, darling, no. You did nothing wrong. I shouldn't have cried, Emma whispered. It was just a gift. He didn't mean it. But he did. Sarah knew it. Jack's words had been sharp by choice. She had seen that look before, the same coldness her father once had. Pride without compassion. Sarah squeezed Emma's hand. You made something beautiful, Em. You gave him kindness, and he threw it away. That doesn't make it worthless. It makes him blind. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled weakly. Do you think he'll ever understand? Sarah hesitated. One day, she said softly, life has a way of showing people the value of what they've thrown away. That night, Sarah drove home through the storm. The house was dark, except for the faint glow of a lamp in the living room. Jack was there, sitting alone, the pieces of Emma's shattered gift on the table before him. He didn't look up when she entered. She's okay, Sarah said quietly. She'll come home tomorrow. Jack nodded. His face was pale, eyes hollow. For the first time, she saw guilt. Not anger or arrogance, but real regret. I shouldn't have said that, he muttered. It was stupid. Sarah took a deep breath. You hurt her deeply, Jack. You made her believe that what she created, what she is, has no worth. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean it that way. It just came out. That's the thing about words, Sarah said. Once they're out, they stay. They echo in someone's heart long after you forget saying them. Jack stared at the fragments again. It was a little wooden box Emma had painted herself. Inside, she had carved his name and glued tiny seashells from their summer trip. Childish, maybe, but filled with love. He reached out and picked up one of the pieces, running his thumb over the bright blue paint. His jaw tightened. She spent weeks making this, he murmured. Yes, Sarah said. While you were busy saying nothing mattered. Jack's shoulders shook. I didn't know she cared that much. You never looked long enough to see, Sarah replied. And that's what scares me, Jack. You're growing up into someone who doesn't look, doesn't feel. He looked up finally, eyes glistening. Can I fix it? Sarah hesitated. Maybe not the box, but you can start with your sister. The next morning, when Emma came home, Jack was waiting on the porch. He held something in his hands. Glued, uneven, but whole again. The box. He had spent the whole night piecing it together, awkwardly but carefully, as if each shard of paint and wood could heal a part of his own heart. When Emma stepped out of the car, she froze. Jack walked up slowly, holding out the box. I broke it, he said quietly, and I can't make it perfect again, but I tried. Emma looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and took it, her small fingers brushing his. It's still beautiful, she whispered. Jack swallowed. I said something awful. You didn't deserve that. Emma smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. It's okay. It was just a gift. No, Jack said, shaking his head. It wasn't just a gift, it was love, and I was too stupid to see it. He took a deep breath, his voice trembling. I don't want to be like him. Emma frowned. Like who? Jack looked away. Dad. There was a silence. Then softly, Emma said, Then don't be. In the months that followed, something shifted. Jack began helping Emma with her school projects. He started talking to their mother more. Sometimes Sarah would find him sitting quietly, carving small wooden toys. Not perfect, but made with care. One evening, Sarah walked into the living room and saw Emma painting beside him. The box, the one once shattered, sat on the shelf, now holding tiny folded notes. What's inside? She asked. Emma grinned. Every time we forgive each other, we write it down. Sarah smiled, her eyes stinging. That's a good box, she said. Jack nodded. It's not worthless anymore. Sarah touched his shoulder. It never was. Years later, when Emma left for college, she packed the same little box in her suitcase. Jack helped carry her bags, now taller, stronger, but softer too. Before she got in the car, she handed him the box. "Keep it," she said. "It'll remind you of when we learned what things are really worth." He smiled. "I won't forget." When she drove away, he sat on the porch, holding the box in his hands. The paint was faded, the glue uneven, but it was whole, and in its quiet imperfection, it held something eternal. Love, regret, and forgiveness intertwined. He whispered to the wind, "I'm sorry, Emma." And for the first time in years, he truly meant it.